One of the great things about the couch surfing community is that you get friends all over the world, and then you also have an opportunity to meet friends of friends. And I don't know if you remember when I was in Connecticut, I did a couch crash where I got to meet a lot of couch surfers, and some of them being ambassadors for couch surfing. His name is Jason. And when I came here to Florida, I said, hey, I've got some extra time here. Do you know anyone I should meet? And he said, yeah, I do. You need to meet Cynthia. She's absolutely well-traveled. She's also a couch surfing ambassador, and she's in Florida. So I got a car, and now I'm driving to, wow, that is a beautiful lake. And that's where she asked me to meet her. And I can't wait for you to meet her as well. So here we go. I'm about to get there.
Travel is possible at any age. Your sense of adventure is just over the horizon. So, reach out and grab it. This is the Radio Vagabond.
Well, I got a text from her. I'm here, Cowboy Hat Market, South Africa. And I don't see any cowboy hat market here. And why would I? We're in Florida. Okay, maybe because we're in Florida, you would see something weird. But so I just sent a text. I'm on the parking lot. Don't see any cowboy hat market. I do see somebody sitting on a bench right in front of me with a cowboy hat. It might be her. Let's go see.
This episode is brought to you in part by Hotels25.com. It's a website that helps you find the best prices on hotels around the world. Hotels25.com.
Do you know where I can get a cowboy hat?
Gotta go to South Africa for this one. During the summer. Okay, I do too. So at least with my friends. I missed it for about a year. I'm like, I'm not doing it without hugs.
So I was parked right there, and I thought, when you wrote, I thought, is there a shop called Cowboy Hat South Africa? I don't see any of that. And then I sent you the text right now, and I just looked right and straight ahead. Said, okay, that's a cowboy hat. Might be the one.
So welcome to Lake Wales.
That is so beautiful here.
It really is. I just love living. I live about 7 miles that direction.
Yeah.
So I'm not in town. But this is, now you're out of the traffic. Welcome to Central Florida.
Yeah.
This is why I like to live here.
Yeah.
It's very rural, it's very pleasant, and I'll show you
Yeah.
my favorite place in a few minutes.
And quite the opposite from yesterday. I went to Universal Studios.
Okay, with 1 million people running around in masks outside,
Exactly.
standing in line. And, Did you have fun though?
It was fun.
I'm meeting Cynthia, sitting on a bench in front of the beautiful Lake Wales, smack in the middle of Florida. She lives close by, and I ask her if she can give us some facts about where we are.
And now, facts about where we are.
Okay, we are sitting here on a beautiful lake. I don't know exactly how big it is, but it's pretty big. It's like 3 miles or so if you walk around it. This is a natural lake, and this is the center of the town of Lake Wales. We are in the very middle of Florida. If you picture Florida, we are in the middle, almost exactly to the middle of it. So this is very high up here, and at one point in time when the dinosaurs were wandering around the world, this would have been beachfront. So this is a very unusual place as far as the geology and the animals and everything are very different from the rest of Florida. So this is the town of Lake Wales, and this is the Lake of Lake Wales. They are spelled differently. The town was surveyed in the 1800s. In fact, right back there they camped and surveyed the area, and they called the lake Lake Wales, W-A-I-L-E-S. And then when they platted the town, we were incorporated in 1911. For some reason, the town is Lake Wales, W-A-L-E-S. There is still debate today as to whether or not that was intentional or it was an error. We do not know.
So somebody was dyslexia.
Yeah, could be. Undiagnosed in 1911. But it's a beautiful place to live. It's still very rural. I moved here 30 years ago. There were only 10,000 people. And there was one traffic light. We now have a few more traffic lights, and we have about 18,000 people here, but it's still very rural. The core of this is lakes and citrus and cattle. A lot of people around here have land with either citrus or cattle.
And then still pretty close to everything, even though you're in the middle of the country. So there's water here, but there's no beach. There's a lot of beach in Florida, a lot of beautiful beach. You're about an hour south of Orlando, a little bit less than that, and 2 hours to Miami.
Closer to 4 all the way to Miami,
okay.
maybe 3.5.
Oh, I got a big drive tomorrow then. I completely forgot.
But yeah, each coastline is about an hour, give or take, if you go straight across. And I'm 1 hour, give or take, from 2 international airports, baby. That's
Which
important.
is good for you when you travel.
I have my choice between Tampa and Orlando, so that's all cool.
And that was Facts About Where We Are.
So good to see you. With the South Africa hat, I was so right that, oh my God, it is the one. Yeah. And that's you got a necklace with the world.
I carry the world right next to my heart all the time.
So is that because it's a world map on your necklace, and is that all the places you've been, or can you add something to it?
It's actually an entire world map, and I have not been everywhere. I am at 117 countries right now.
Damn you, I'm right behind you.
7 continents, baby, and all 50 states.
So I was just in the car. I was just telling my listeners that it was Jason from Connecticut that introduced us, and that's one of the beautiful things about couchsurfing, that you not only get to meet people, but you also get to know their friends as well. So that is so cool, and he introduced us, and here we are.
It's all about the people in couchsurfing. I mean, it's not at all about the couch. It's about the people that you meet along the way. Yeah. And I've been blessed to meet over 1,100 people in person, all over the world.
You count them?
Yes. I count lots of things, not just countries. I'm a bit of a geek. But I've been on the site a really long time. I've been on the site since 2007, and I'm one of the 5 ambassadors for the country of the United States. Yeah. So I volunteer at
I was talking about that as well. What does it mean to be a couchsurfing ambassador?
Yeah, so Jason is as well. There's 5 of us, and it just means we're really big volunteers. So we work for free a lot. That's really what it means. Yeah. But now it just means we're really involved, and we really believe in the mission of meeting people and sharing time and sharing experiences and connecting the world one person at a time. So organizationally today, what we're going to do is I want to show you my lake. Well, it's not my lake, but you know what I mean. It's a good meeting spot. And then we're going to go up this way about 1/3 of a mile, and we're going to roll uphill. You're going to roll uphill. Place called Spook Hill.
Yeah, I think I've seen that on a video somewhere, and you wrote that to me in a text as well. Rolling uphill. So I put my car in neutral, and it rolls uphill.
Yes, exactly. And there's a big sign with the legend, and when we get up there, we can read the sign. It's all about there was a big battle between a native person and a huge alligator, and it caused a recess, and then it's changed the magnetic field right around there, and so you're going to roll uphill. And when we get to the top, then we're less than a mile from Bok Tower Gardens, probably the most famous place of all, Lake Wales. A beautiful garden with a carillon bell and 60 acres of beautiful gardens to walk through, manicured gardens, and it's on the highest point in peninsular Florida. We will be 295 feet above sea level there. Woo! It's so huge.
Yeah, because Florida is almost as flat as Denmark.
Almost.
But before we set off, I need to know, why do you have a South African cowboy hat on?
Well, because I bought this in South Africa. So I was there. I've taken 3 trips to South Africa. And
me too.
Oh, cool. Yeah. There's so much to see and do there. You could spend a lot of time. So on my 3rd trip, I guess, I was actually traveling with my boyfriend at the time, and we were in a shop and saw this and just thought it was an awesome hat. So, you know.
Have you ever wondered what the places in this podcast actually look like? I have. So I started following the Radio Vagabond on Instagram, simply by searching Radio Vagabond. Gotta keep moving.
Now we're at a place where it says Spook Hill. And it is quite a hill. It's definitely going up.
Is it?
I can see that. Come on. Come on. It's going up. Okay, there's a sign here.
The sign at the foot of Spook Hill tells the story of the legend. Ages ago, an Indian torn on Lake Wales Lake was plagued with rage by a huge gator. The town's great warrior chief, and the gator was killed in the final battle that created the huge swampy depression nearby. The chief was buried on the north side. Lake Pioneer haulers comes from the foot of the old army trail atop the ridge above, found their horses laboring here at the foot of the ridge and called it Spook Hill. Is it the gator seeking revenge or the chief protecting his land? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And then the sign says, stop the car at the white line, place it in neutral, and let it roll back.
Okay. Spook Hill. So I'm stopping at the white line, putting it in neutral, letting go, and rolling back.
And I did just that. I stopped at the white line at the bottom of the hill, I placed it in neutral, and lo and behold, it rolled back.
It is going backwards.
Really spooky.
Very slowly.
Or could it be an optical illusion? Have a look at the video I posted on the radiovagabond.com and let me know what you think.
That was spooky.
Let's talk a bit about CouchSurfing. I'm sure you know what it's about, but give me 34 seconds to explain what it is. It's a platform online called CouchSurfing.com where you can either host or stay with someone. No money changes hands between the host and the guest. You pay with a little gift, a dinner, or simply by telling a story, singing a song, or being a great guest. Normally you don't spend the night on the couch. In the 50 plus times I've stayed with someone, there's only been one time I've actually slept on a couch, and that was a big one on a blueberry farm in Maine. The most important thing is that you get to meet some locals, and as a host, that you get to meet some interesting people from around the world. It's such a great platform. Obviously, it's been tough for CouchSurfing during the pandemic, and recently they've asked users in their home market USA to pay a little bit to keep the platform alive. As an unpaid CouchSurfing ambassador, I asked Cynthia if she could talk a little bit about this.
That's a really good question. And
Thank you. Not my first rodeo.
not your first rodeo. So I am only a volunteer. I am not paid staff.
No.
I am not in loop on paid staff. I only learn of things when they choose to inform us. Now, the country ambassadors, in theory, are more in the loop than, say, average people through the site, but that has not been true in the last year. The site is going through what I believe are necessary changes. We grew very, very fast, became a vast network. When I joined in 2007, there were about 100,000 people on the site, and I literally, within 4 degrees of separation, I knew everyone on that site. There used to be this little thing you could see little pictures to see how you were connected to someone. Yeah. And it would be, I know Joe, Joe knows Mary, Mary knows John, and John knows the guy I want to meet in, I don't know, Paris. Yeah. And so we had that, a much more feel of connectivity. You cannot have that when we are this massive. It is unrealistic to expect that we have that. It's also unrealistic to expect that we can run a site for free. You simply can't run one with this volume where you have to save all the data. Every conversation, every surf request, all of that has to be saved. And last I heard, we had 6 servers we maintain in India. It's a huge amount of data. All of that costs money. So as soon as we introduced the concept of money to pay for the site, it of course then changed the site. And there's been a lot of people who've left the site because they always thought it should be people choosing to spend time with each other and that the site itself should be free to facilitate that. That is no longer possible. So the site has been going through changes. I believe there are still more to come. And of course, COVID has changed things dramatically. It's made very difficult to surf. And that's assuming people are traveling, which they're not. I still have, interestingly, surfed and hosted during COVID, much more carefully. You know, you're going to be more careful with who comes into your home. You're not going to have a bunch of people over. You're not going to have parties in your house. When I stay with people, they literally sometimes have asked me, well, you know, have you been exposed? Who have you been around? Blah, blah, blah. A lot more questions about health that we would have, of course, never dialogued previously. So I hope that couchsurfing will come out of this stronger and better. And I still believe in the core mission, which is connecting people all over the world, and that I have friends all over the world.
Yeah.
It's just friends I haven't met yet.
Yeah, exactly. And they're charging a fee. I don't know if it's only if you're in the U.S. It's not a lot, and for all the things that it's giving me, it's I paid gladly the little fee for a year. So if that helps keep the community alive, because I feel it's so important that we have that.
Exactly. Most Western developed countries do pay a fee. It's not all fixed for the same fee. In most developed countries, it works out to about $2 a month. If you pay on a monthly basis and you get a discount, sometimes as cheap as like $15.
I think I paid $15 for a year.
Okay, yeah, that's if you pay in advance, you get a discount on it. So $15, I mean, you can spend that at lunch any place in the United States. It's just not a big deal. Yeah. Now, third world developing countries are still not paying. So if you live in a country where $15 would be what your family would earn in 2 weeks, we're not going to ask you to pay that. In fact, it's going to be free. So say most of Africa is free. Big chunks of Asia are free. Those countries where you simply can't ask, they won't have it. And we still want to have a worldwide community, so they have built these levels of payment. In theory, someone from a Western country who can afford to travel internationally should be able to afford $15. Someone who lives in Ghana, who they earn $1 a day, cannot. No. And so we're not going to charge anybody in Ghana, which means we still have hosts, say, in Ghana. I haven't been there yet, but I'm going to go meet one of these days.
When I was in Conakry in Guinea, I didn't stay with anybody, but I met 3 people, one for lunch, one for a beer in the afternoon, and one for dinner, and it was probably one of the reasons that I see Guinea and Conakry as a great visit and a place that I actually want to come back to.
Fantastic. That's what couchsurfing is supposed to do.
If travel is your passion and you want escapism while still upholding your work and family responsibilities, you can travel vicariously from the comfort of your own home. This is the Radio Vagabond Podcast.
Cynthia, you're from the U.S., and a lot of people in the U.S. don't travel much. They don't even have a passport. Some of them don't even leave the state. But you've been to more places than most people, I would say. When did the travel bug hit you?
So I was just out of high school, and I was 17. And for some reason, probably because of my love of art history, I really wanted to go to London and see the museums there. And my parents had never left North America. And I didn't think that they would go for the idea of me going to school over there. I decided I wanted to go to university over there. And so I took my mom aside and I asked her first. And she said...
As one teenage girl would.
Would do, yes. And she said, your father will never let you go. I said, well, I got to try, right? So my mom helped me. She, one evening, Dad was home from work, and Mom said, if you're going to ask, your dad's in a really good mood, you should go ask now. So my father was a consummate salesman, brilliant, fast-thinking salesman. So I asked, I said, I'd like to go to university in London. And he instantly said, of course you can go, but you must go to an all-girls school because you're too young to go to a mixed college. I was 17. And you must find a full ride scholarship, because I'm not paying for it.
Okay, you have to explain what that means.
So I had to get funding to go, a scholarship, full ride, meaning he wasn't going to pay for it, and I didn't have any money. I was 17. So he, of course, thought I wouldn't be able to find a girls' school and get a full scholarship to pay for the school. So that was just a challenge for me.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. And this is before the internet. You couldn't just Google, oh, gee, I'd like to go to London. So I was enrolled at the University of Florida, which is the flagship university for this state. And they said they couldn't help me. They had some foreign programs, but that I should call Florida State, which is the second largest university. And so I called Florida State, and oddly, they had a program at an all-girls school in the Kensington area of London in the Arts Center. So that was ideal. So I had solved one problem. Okay, I found a school. Now I have to get in, and I got to get a full scholarship. So I did do that. So I ended up living there in Kensington, and it was this amazing school.
But how did you get the scholarship?
I was a really smart kid. I'm a bit of a geek, but it served me well. It's also why I run a law firm now. Yeah, it's not because I was lazy in school.
No.
My father was a gracious loser. I had beat him at his game.
Yeah.
My father would have never backed down on that.
No.
So I moved there, and a very, very small all-girls school, and we never studied in a classroom. All of our classes were off campus, and so all of our art classes, instead of reading or talking about, say, Impressionist art, we would go to the National Gallery of Art, and we'd stand in front of the Monets when the teacher taught us about Monets. And I studied art history, world history, and politics primarily. So I had a member of parliament was my government teacher, and so we would go underneath Big Ben, and we cleared security every Wednesday afternoon, and we met in his chambers, 8 of us with him, and through that contact I got to meet Margaret Thatcher.
No, you're kidding.
Yeah, 17-year-old girl meeting Margaret Thatcher.
Was that when she was Prime Minister?
Yes.
Oh my God.
But my teacher was a member of parliament.
Yeah.
So, obviously I didn't have tea and a big conversation with her or something, but I talk about an inspiration that probably changed my worldview. I met Margaret Thatcher. Yeah. So that was really cool. And then my parents came after I got out of school, and they took their first trip to Europe. And I remember my dad, we took a bus tour. It was one of those things where you go from London all the way to Rome in 2 weeks and you see all of Europe. Because my dad's theory was, well, if we're going to go to this Europe place, we should get it out of the way. Let's go see it and be done with this, right? And I remember we were driving over near the bridge at Arno, and what's weird is my dad was a huge history buff. A really big world history buff, and very bright. And yet I don't think it had ever occurred to him that he could go see all of this stuff he knew about. And I remember I was looking at my father as we were near the bridge at Arno, and I can still see the look on my father's face right this second. He's looking out the window and he's going, there it is. There's the bridge at Arno. And I could see the light bulb on the top of his head. Yeah. There it was. And at that second, it sunk into him that he could go to these places he'd heard about. We had trouble keeping him home. So he only lived about 20 years after that. He was in 50 countries in 20 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you kind of infected him with the bug as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The Radio Vagabond. Gotta keep moving.
You've been to 117 countries so far, and all 50 states, and I'm breathing down your neck, but I'm not there yet. So that's a lot.
It's a lot. And what's interesting is a lot of people who are not hardcore travelers don't realize once you get over 100, it starts to get a lot harder. Yeah. At first you could go to Europe, and if you had a month, you could get 20 countries pretty easily. Yeah. You can go to Central America and knock off, 13. No, that's South America. South America has 13. But anyways, you can knock off quite a few. 9 in Central America. But then it starts to get harder. Then it's like, okay, I got to fly to Namibia, or I got to fly to Mongolia, or I got to fly to Sri Lanka. It gets harder to add. But I'm still doing it. Yeah. And I try, if I take a foreign trip, I try to not go someplace where I can't get at least 3 countries. That's usually my goal, and I'll take a month or something like that and try and get 3. It doesn't always work that way, but that's what I try for.
Yeah. But is it a goal for you to do them all?
It's a really good question, and I don't know the answer.
Thank you. Not my first rodeo.
Not your first rodeo. I guess because I say that, it probably isn't my core goal. I want to see the whole world, but I'm not particularly interested in getting kidnapped or killed. And some places are really, really complicated. Syria, Sudan, Afghanistan. I mean, some places are just really complicated. And I'm not sure that there's enough there to attract me in some of those countries that it's worth the risk to me. I'm a blonde American lawyer. Traveling solo is risky in some places.
This episode is brought to you in part by this website called hotels25.com. If you're a regular listener, you have heard me mention this before. And I can't say this enough. This is a cool website. It helps you find the cheapest hotel rooms around the world. Hotels25.com. You should try it out. It actually works.
And now, back to this week's episode.
You've been to a place that will make most extreme travelers so jealous because it's so hard and so expensive to go to, and it's not even a country.
It's not a country. Agreed. But my goal was to go both to Antarctica and the Arctic, and to do so within 7 months of each other, because I wanted to experience the contrast. And I did achieve that between 2018 and 2019. Obviously, you do summer in both places, or you don't do them at all, unless you're really crazy. But I did expeditions to both. And the Antarctic expedition, obviously, you go to the very southern tip of South America, and then you get on a boat, and you cross the Drake. It takes about 2.5 days to cross one of the worst water passages in the world. We had a beautiful sail down. Gorgeous weather, whale sightings. It was fantastic. We had the Drake Passage reel coming back. It was horrible. There were storms on both sides of it. Our captain was trying to pull us through the storms. We had to leave a half day early to try and get through. We did get through. It was very unpleasant, like most everybody got sick. But I didn't, but I'm lucky. But we still had almost a week on the Antarctic Peninsula, which, if people are looking at a map of Antarctica, people think it's just a big circle of ice. But below South America, there's this peninsula that sticks up called the Antarctic Peninsula. And the number one place, if people are going to Antarctica and they're not on a base, is to go to the peninsula. And so we spent time there. And I remember my first day on the land. It was on an expedition trip. You can go on the land. There's some cruises that go through, but you're not allowed to get off. And I didn't want to do that because it was important to me to be on the land. So on the first day, I remember I'm in jeans and water pants, because you have to take inflatable Zodiacs to get from the ship to the land. But I had just like a long-sleeved shirt on underneath my parka, and I ended up taking my parka off because it was too warm. It was in the 50s and 100% sun. I have never seen someplace so beautiful. My screensaver for many years was me in front of 1,000 penguins on that day, with a massive glacier in front of me and the biggest mountains I've ever seen, completely covered in snow, like behind me. So if most people can picture the mountains in Switzerland because they've seen them, they would look like anthills down there. Yeah, it's awesome. So awesome. So we had pretty good weather, and because of the good weather, there was one night we were you have to pull a special permit, the ship does, but we were allowed to camp on Antarctica. And of course, in the summertime, it never gets dark there. So what you do is you have dinner on the ship, and about 9 o'clock at night, you get off the ship, and you go in by Zodiacs to a landing point, and then we carried really good sleeping bags and sleeping pads with us. We didn't have tents or anything, and you just dig a shallow trench about 3 inches deep, and you put your sleeping bag down in that, in the ice and snow, and so that gives you a little shelter, because later on the wind is going to come. Even on a perfect day, the wind will come. The question is how bad it will be. So again, we had very good weather. So we get to our landing spot, and you have to climb a big hill because you don't want to be down near the water in case something happens. If you pictured a big island of ice, and there's a slight water trough around it, and then there's these huge mountains around it, covered in ice and glaciers, that roughly at least once an hour, something the size of a school bus sized glacier calves off of it and goes chunk down in the water. Oh. So that's why you don't want to be near the water, because you get a big damn wave or you die, depending on where you are. So you go up on this big hill. So you climb up on this big hill so you're away from the water.
Away from the tsunami.
Away from the tsunami, yeah. And you find your spot, and you dig this little thing.
We got church bells here, but carry on.
Meanwhile, while we were digging our little things to sleep in, the crew digs. We were pretty fancy camp. We had a men's and a ladies' restroom.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty fancy. So what they do is they actually build like an ice house, and then they put a 5-gallon container with a seat on it inside.
Oh, really?
And then they carved a male and a female symbol, and they stuck it on the top of the ice house. You know, there are no structures, so you pretty much figured it out anyways.
Seriously? The big bell is going on now. Okay, that's the cue for a quick break, and we'll be back hearing more about the toilet situation in Antarctica in a bit. Stay with us.
You didn't know there was going to be a toilet in their story, did you?
No.
I debated about telling you.
If you like this podcast, you will probably love the podcast called Far From Home. Here, the host, Scott Gurian, normally reports sound-rich stories from his travels to far-flung places around the world. But he hasn't been doing much traveling over the past year and a half as a result of COVID. So instead, he's been collecting stories from fellow travelers, including a few from his African-American friends who shared stories of what it was like traveling abroad as black men and how they sometimes treated differently. For example, there was this one time where they decided to go out dancing in Buenos Aires.
They lead us upstairs into this club, and we're just like, what is happening? The manager comes in, and he's like, hey guys, I'm so excited to see you. How's it going? And we're looking at each other like we're doing fine. And he's like, if you have your CD, let us know, we can play your music tonight. They thought we were rappers. They were just like, you don't have to stand in line. You could just come on inside and come up to the VIP. I think Alvin had a fitted Yankee hat on at the time, and I think I had one on as well. We just like dressed like typical New Yorkers, and we didn't realize that we resembled a rap duo. But that night we got the taste of what a celebrity nightlife would be like. We had girls come in, they're sitting in our laps, they're taking pictures with us, we're signing autographs. We have girls auditioning to be in our video, and one girl is like, I've been taking hip-hop dance classes in New York, let me show you what I can do. And we're looking at one another, and I'm like, who do they think we are? And he's like, I don't know, let's just see how long we can go with this.
Scott's show is called Far From Home. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts or listen at farfromhomepodcast.org. And now, back to this week's episode. Let's see if the church bells are gone.
And we're back. When we left you, we were talking about restrooms in Antarctica. And there's a male's room and a girl's room.
There is. So you essentially set up a camp on this island, and you have to set it up and break it down so that everything goes back exactly the way it was before. So literally, if you dug a trench...
It's like Burning Man.
I assume like Burning Man. I have not been, but yes, like Burning Man. I didn't really quite get why we had to move the snow back since, well, you're in Antarctica. And probably God's going to move the snow back the next day. But anyways, so it was kind of funny, and it made really good photo ops, these two restrooms. For about the first hour after you get set up, they let everybody walk around, and then about 11 o'clock or so, they call a quiet time so that people actually can sleep. And from like 11 till 6 in the morning. And they don't want people walking around, so you go and you get in your little sleeping bag. But, you didn't really go to Antarctica to sleep. At least I didn't. It was for the experience of being on the coldest, driest, windiest, highest continent in the world. Because it is all of those expletives and a few more that I can't remember right now. So I'm in my little sleeping bag, and you have a really good, nice down sleeping bag. And so you're pretty comfortable for the first few minutes as you're there, and there's no noise for a few minutes. They've even moved the ship so we can't see or hear it. We have one Zodiac and an emergency radio. Mm-hmm. So the ship could come back and get us.
What's a Zodiac?
Oh, it's an inflatable black raft with a single engine on the back that you move from the ship to the land or to tour around when you're off the ship. It's the number one method of transport on expeditions in the Arctic regions. At first, you're down in your sleeping bag and it's light out, but mostly I remember hearing things. And I don't remember really seeing things because, well, you're on this ice island. There's not really much to look at. But it's so quiet because, well, civilization is thousands of miles away. So, there's no ambient noise, there's no ambient light, there's no nothing. So you hear all of this stuff. Like, the landing site had little penguins at it, and I could hear them close to a block away splashing in the water.
Oh.
And then birds. I didn't realize the Arctic regions have birds. I guess I didn't know that till I got down there. So you hear them, and you can hear their wings flapping as they fly. It's that quiet. And then, of course, they make little songs. And it was so beautiful for about an hour. And then some people started to go to sleep. And everyone who was camping with me, with the exception of me and my friend, apparently snores really loud. So basically, for several hours, all I heard was snoring. And calving glaciers.
Yeah.
So there'd be snoring and then crunch, crash.
and then birds flapping their wings.
So
nobody flushing the toilet.
No, there's no flushing.
That's a plus.
It's a plus, yeah. By the way, you pay $300 for the privilege of sleeping on an ice bed on top of your expedition, right? For the privilege of using the bathroom in a paint can. But it's still worth every dime. So you do not, at least I did not sleep, partly because we had these great, really first world sleeping bags that were rated to minus 20 degrees, supposedly. And we had 2 sleeping mats. So we should have been, I thought, pretty comfortable. But even with all of that, and I'm wearing a parka, I could only stay on one side of my body for about 20 minutes, and then it would freeze up. So every 20 minutes you have to roll front, side, back, other side. And you do that all night long to try and keep your body warm. So that wasn't very comfortable. I did sleep a little bit, I would say, because I would feel myself nodding off, and then I would get cold, and I would wake up, and I would turn over. So I can't really say I, quote, slept well in Antarctica, but I have slept and I have overnighted on the highest, driest, windiest, coldest continent in the world. It was an experience.
Yeah. It's almost where you say, okay, maybe we can squeeze 2 people in this sleeping bag.
Well, that would have been more fun.
Wow.
The ultimate destination for armchair travelers who are looking for inspiration to get out into the real world, let loose their wanderlust. This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
Getting back to the rest of the world, have you been to all the continents then?
Yes, Antarctica was my number 7.
Yeah.
It is usually either 6 or 7 for almost everyone.
Yeah.
It's not where you go first. We did have somebody, it was only their 4th continent, a younger person. I actually met some people on that ship that were in their 30s and 40s, which is relatively young to get that far, who said to me that some of the younger generation, they are putting travel before families and career development, and you've probably run into that in the podcast. So I certainly felt that down there because people were committing a huge amount of time. You basically...
And money.
Time and money, yeah, lots of it. You could do a trip in 2 weeks, but almost no one does because it's so far from anything. Most people spend about a month, with half of it in South America and half of it in Antarctica. It's about the shortest trip you're going to do, realistically.
I want to ask you, because for me, traveling, the meeting new people is the best thing about traveling, meeting interesting people. So if you were to name 1 or 2 of the most interesting people you've met on your journey and most unexpected serendipitous moment, what would that be?
That's a really good question.
Thank you.
You've done this once or twice before, haven't you?
Not my first rodeo. It's the first time I asked that question, but yeah, I have, yeah.
So I'm terribly shy. I'm in a 12-step program for shyness. Not. But probably one of the most unusual times of meeting someone. I was in the country of Swaziland, which not a lot of people will know where that is, but that's one of the 2 countries in the middle of South Africa that is a totally isolated pocket surrounded by...
Which is actually... was also called Swaziland when I was there, but not anymore.
Now it's E.
It's Swanti?
Yes, sorry, I did, yeah. It was Swaziland when I was there. Yes.
Yeah.
You are correct, though.
Not my first rodeo.
Not your first rodeo. But I was there in winter in a country that almost no one from North America will have ever heard of. And in winter, they have almost no one there. So I was traveling solo, and I was staying at this teeny little guest house. Maybe in the middle of their season, it would have held 40 people or something. There were probably about 20 rooms. But turns out this place is owned by the ambassador of the country. So his daughter manages it. And she's probably in her mid-30s, I would guess. She personally had been to more than 100 countries. So I'm sitting around a fire pit with her one night, having an adult beverage. And she says, oh, there's 2 other people staying at the hotel tonight. I should maybe introduce you guys. You guys might get along. And I said, sure. So she goes and she rounds them up. So now there's 4 of us around this fire pit. I was the least well-traveled because I was just over 100 countries at the time.
Oh.
The other 3 were more well-traveled than me. Now, the one dude, he goes only to countries where he can see a soccer match. He has seen a soccer match in more than 100 countries.
Wow.
And I said to him, I said, is there a professional soccer team in, at that time, Swaziland? He goes, no, he said, I had to go to a high school game here, but I went to one, and that counts.
Wow.
So that was an eye-opener for me to spend an evening with 3 people who had been to more countries than me.
Yeah. See how I feel right now.
But you're going to catch me soon.
Yeah, well, you got to stay put then before I catch you. Yeah.
A year and a half, almost 2. I'm pushing 2 years without having left the country. I'm having withdrawal from travel.
So where's the next trip going to once you're able to travel? What's on the top of the bucket list right now?
In an optimal world, I'll add another 7 or 8 countries this year. I'd like to go to the Balkans, and I will probably make that happen late September this year. The weather's quite good there. I've been to Slovenia, but I've never been anywhere south of that. So Croatia, Albania, Bosnia.
Montenegro, Albania. Yeah.
So there's a lot of countries that are really fascinating. Lots of history, beautiful mountains, and my understanding from some friends who are at least in Croatia right now, there's almost no tourists. So it's a rare opportunity to go when there aren't a lot of tourists. There's no cruise ships running and all of that. So I hope end of September to do some of those countries. And then hopefully within a couple of months after that, I'd like to fly to Nairobi. I've actually not been to Kenya. I've been to every country south of there, but I've not been to Kenya. And I'll do Kenya and Uganda. I was hoping for Rwanda and DRC, but I don't think they're going to be possible this trip. But I might take a month and do Kenya and Uganda. That would be a lovely journey.
I might do Kenya, Uganda as well soon. So let's keep in touch, and maybe we can hook up and do the second part 2 of this episode.
In Nairobi would be great.
That would be so cool.
Podcast 2.0 in Nairobi.
This episode was recorded in August of this year, 2021, and Cynthia actually did go to the Balkans in September. She visited 8 countries in 4 weeks, including 6 new countries, bringing her country count to 123. And we're actually seriously talking about doing a trip to Kenya and Uganda soon. So who knows if there'll be a
Podcast 2.0 in Nairobi.
You can follow Cynthia on Facebook as Cynthia Globetrotting Lady Lawyer Cynthia.
And on these words, thank you for listening. I'll see you in Kenya or Uganda or somewhere.
My name is Palabo, and I gotta keep moving. See ya.
Cool.
Did you get what you needed?
So much.
Produced by radioguru.co.uk.
I'm a bit of a geek.